The following program is underwritten by the Nevada Irrigation District. Since 1921, providing clean and healthy drinking and irrigation water to more than 24,000 homes, farms, schools, and businesses in Nevada and Placer counties.
I'm your host, Lou Sitzer. This is NCTV Interviews. Thanks for watching. We're going to learn a lot today about poverty and bridges out of poverty. This is a program that was established. We'll find out how long ago it was established, but it's coming to our community today and tomorrow in the form of a workshop. So I really want to welcome Monica Bean, who is the national trainer for Bridges Out of Poverty, and to Eddie Sitzer, who is coordinator of the Family Connections Collaborative, an organization that has helped to bring Bridges Out of Poverty here. So Eddie, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little introduction to your organization and how you found out about Bridges Out of Poverty.
Family Connections is a group of nonprofits made of about 20 nonprofits. And I coordinate them. We have monthly meetings, and a large part of my job is providing trainings. So I put out a survey every year and ask people what they want. And they had heard about Bridges Out of Poverty, but they hadn't attended. And that was 3 years ago. So I attended a training in Tahoe, and I was so excited I wanted to bring it here. I went to a one-day training, but at the end of one day, it was over, and I still didn't know what to do with the information. So when I set it up, I wanted the second day, which is applying the Bridges information to the community.
And what particularly got you excited about the program?
It was a lot of new information about poverty. It was like to see our system of everything we do from the position of someone who has no resources. It's a completely different culture.
And why do you think it would be a benefit to us here, having seen the program in Tahoe and knowing our community?
Well, I work with people who have clients that are struggling. They're on the edge. They have families with young children, and they don't have resources. Sometimes there's 3 generations of poverty, and it's a new way of looking at the clients and pretty much walking in their shoes. It's a real shift in perspective. It's very important, I think, to be knowledgeable in that way.
So you decided to bring this training to our community, and who all is involved? Before we get into the content of the training, how did you approach bringing it to the community, and who all is attending?
Half of the attenders are county employees, and Nevada County Social Services paid for half of the training. The rest are from nonprofit agencies, Foothill Healthy Babies, the Food Bank, just all the nonprofits, Hospitality House, CalWorks, a lot. There were 70 people there today.
And I was there in the beginning to kind of help get things going. I noticed there was a Native American element that I was surprised to see. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, they're from Chappaday. That's the group who's building the big clinic up towards the hospital. And they're there, and I do a lot of email networking, and they're on my email list. So as soon as they heard about the training, they wrote back and said, sign us up.
So now, Monica, if you wouldn't mind also giving us some background to yourself,
Okay.
and then let's just go into the program as you talk about it. I will definitely ask questions
Okay.
if I can, you know, if any occur to me.
Okay. Well, my background is as a speech pathologist, and so many people ask, why as a speech pathologist are you teaching people about poverty? The answer is twofold. First of all, part of my family comes from poverty. And the second part of that answer is because I work with people primarily in poverty. I'm from Oklahoma, so I'm an Okie, and I work for the health department there. That's part of my job. That's one of the hats that I wear. And people don't come to the health department because they have money or resources or insurance. They come because they need resources, and we're there to provide that. And so through working with people in poverty, I went to a training, Bridges Out of Poverty, and I said, I have to tell everybody I know about this, because the principles that you learn made sense to my own life, and they also helped me create better relationships with the customers that I served. So that's how I went from being a speech pathologist to also doing the work with AHA process.
And give us some information about the sort of history of the AHA process, because you came into it when it was fairly well formed.
Yes. AHA process, it was made by Ruby Payne. She was an educator, and she became a principal of a school district, and they had a large percentage of children from poverty in the school district. And she started learning how to create relationships with the families and the students, and she identified what she calls hidden rules, which is taking a topic or a subject or a situation and having all three classes, poverty, middle class, and wealth, look at the same situation in a different way. And I really admire the way she explains it, because she says one class is not better than another, it's just different. And knowing those hidden rules will give you access to the different classes. So I think that it's profound, and that it means a lot to my own family and myself, and when I look back on my history, and then also to the people that I serve.
And so out of this program that has developed, they've published a number of books.
Yes.
And have developed a workshop. You're here to essentially train people in a 2-day workshop.
Right, and that started with the book Framework for Understanding Poverty. That was Dr. Payne's first book, and then that really takes an educational slant to the information. She took it one step further, and Phil Duvall and Terry Drusey Smith wrote Bridges Out of Poverty. So that looks at the poverty issue more through a community and a professional lens, if you will, and so it looks at it as a community and says, how can we better support people in poverty?
Right. And of course, it's very intriguing to hear about hidden rules. And I know that over the course of the 2 days you talk about this. Could you give us a little anecdotal information about hidden rules? Because
Well,
it's very
sure.
mysterious.
I like to be mysterious. So you know, hidden rules, it's not, one class's hidden rules are not better than another, and we usually take the hidden rules with which we were raised. And so there are hidden rules everywhere. There are hidden rules at church, and hidden rules at work, and hidden rules of this TV program. There's hidden rules of everything. And so I'll give you an example of one, and it's my favorite. It's the hidden rule of food. And and so the hidden rule is that a lot of people in poverty worry about quantity. People in poverty often wonder if their food stamps are going to last to the end of the month, if they're going to have enough food to feed their kids, and how they're going to get food on the table. So quantity becomes very important. In general, however, middle class people don't worry about if they're going to have enough food. They usually worry about if the food that they have is going to taste good. So quality comes into play. And then wealth, usually, people in wealth usually know there's going to be food, and they usually know that it's going to taste good. And so the focus then would be, is it pretty? So the presentation comes into play with wealth.
And that might involve restaurants that serve you know, the well-managed food on a plate, or a chef or a cook that might prepare a dish wouldn't
Right.
necessarily be your own home cooking.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Home cooking, you can make it look pretty. You can go and buy all the extra parsley sprigs and things to make it look pretty if you want, and you may do that if you're in wealth and you have money to do that. So it can be home cooking, or it can be restaurants. You know, we all visit restaurants with, you know, we go into the places that are fancy that have 8 different forks and 4 different spoons and knives and all, and we don't know what to do with it. And so that's a hidden rule to know, you know, that you start from the outside and go in, and knowing those hidden
Yeah.
rules, and I think that it's important to know poverty, middle class, and wealth hidden rules, and knowing those will help give us access to the different classes.
I know I'm a failure with some immediately because I still can't set the table properly.
Right.
Even though my mother and my wife have tried, it's just something I haven't ever been able to learn. So
Yeah.
those kind of things really
Right.
that indicate maybe education, class.
Right.
Right. Wonderful. So you've started the training. You've had your first day.
Yes.
What have you learned?
What have I learned? Okay, this is what I've learned.
Okay.
I've learned that we have a group of people who are thinkers. And we have a group of people who want to help the customer. And that doesn't always happen. And so I'm very proud of this area. So thank you for bringing everybody together, Eddie, because it's so important to have a group of people who will process it and ask questions and talk about it and truly think about it and don't just sit there as a training. Because we all go to trainings. All of us go to trainings. And it's very easy to sit there and listen and just stay half awake during a training, but everybody in the training is talking, they're networking, they're collaborating, and they're really thinking. So what I've learned is that you have the perfect community, and it's a great vehicle, this community is, to do something more with Bridges, not just the training, but take it further to actually make a program for people in poverty.
Well, I know that poverty is something that's been with us forever. It probably will continue to be with us that way, but it's something that we never give up on trying to remedy. And I'm just curious as to, Eddie, you may have some information on this, whether, in fact, poverty is a growing problem or a diminishing problem, and what has been your experience?
I would say with the agencies and child advocates that it's a growing problem. There are more people who need services than there are people to provide them. For instance, Foothill Healthy Babies, if they had more workers and more hours paid for, there's plenty of clients out there in poverty who need help.
And
They're
so
a home visitor.
This is a book that has been published by the organization, the AHA organization, Bridges Out of Poverty. Not to leave the conversation, but perhaps, Monica, you could tell us a little bit more about this book. This is the workbook.
Right. The workbook accompanies the real book. The real book can be bought in Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com, and they sell it through the website, which is www.ahaprocess.com. The workbook really accompanies the training in that it has the handouts and some information from the book. So for anyone who's interested in reading the book, Bridges Out of Poverty can be purchased through those places.
And this is a book that's been provided to everyone at the workshop and that you're working through. What kind of results have you had in the past? A certain amount of predictability here. And what do you expect will happen, and what has been your experience in other communities?
Of communities who take the workshop?
Yes.
Well, in communities like this, where everybody's a thinker and who apply the information and who have actually gotten together as a community to learn what is it, what do I need to know about working with people in poverty and how do I implement it? That's both the day's training. So, and I'm very thankful when we have a community who actually says, how can we help people more effectively? And so communities like that typically, after the training, will establish a long-term community meeting where maybe one time a month or 2 times a month they get together as a collaboration. And it's an important part right now to say that one of the things we feel strongly about at AHA Process is involving the customer as a problem solver and engaging the people in poverty as a problem solver, because all too often it's the other people at the table making decisions. And so we really advocate to bring all 3 classes to the table and solve problems together in the community. And so we actually have a program for people in poverty that's called Getting Ahead in a Just Getting By World. And it's very fun to see a community like this come together, go through the workshop, offer workshops for the people in poverty, the Getting Ahead workshop, and then bringing them to the table to actually solve community problems.
Right. So, and of course, this is probably the biggest challenge too, is reaching the client or customer and somehow supporting their being present at the table. Because I think that, in a sense, they're not used to being present.
Right.
And getting them comfortable, welcome, and supported in contributing to that process is a real challenge.
That's right. And I think it's important to look at all the aspects of that. For example, why should they be there? What do they have to offer? What's the incentive for them being there? Do they realize that they have a role that they can play in the community to help make the services better for others in poverty? And so to bring everyone to the table is to help people realize that you may have to provide transportation, you may have to provide childcare, you may have to provide incentives, you may have to provide a meal, but getting everyone at the table is completely invaluable.
Right. And so, Eddie, do you see, I mean, you're going to be involved ongoingly with this. What future do you see for the training?
I think tomorrow probably we'll talk about what we can do, and I think Family Connections will be pretty instrumental in bringing the community together. Maybe that'll be our next training, is getting ahead in a just getting by world.
Right. Yeah, and you know, realistically, all these things cost money. Unless there's some other hidden rule that we can get around, we're going to have to find ways in which to support the process. And maybe it can be done, you know, with very little funding, but still it's needed somehow to support people doing the work. As you say, providing incentives costs money.
Right.
You know, a meal, you know.
It may involve some grant writing. I'm getting better at that.
Yeah. So in other communities, what resources have people been able to call upon to support that process of involving more actively the poor?
Well, I think that one big component that we often forget about are the businesses that employ people in poverty. There are many communities that have had businesses that lose money because they hire people, and then the people that they hire quit, and they have a high turnover rate, and so they lose money in training people and providing the materials and the time and all of those things. And so one area I think people forget is to involve the businesses that hire people in poverty and say, can you pay a livable wage, not just a minimum wage? And then can we help you find people transitioning from poverty that you can actually employ and give a career with a livable wage? And so it's areas like that that we don't initially consider as far as the businesses go, to bring them to the table as well. But we have lots of nonprofits who come to the table as a community, and it doesn't cost anything to meet as a community, and it's free to brainstorm about options that you have. And so most meetings start out free, brainstorming and discussing the issues, and then once again bringing the customer to the table as a problem solver as well. And all of that's free. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, you're welcome to use NCTV as a platform to host any discussions that you would like, because this is really community organizing and community problem solving at its best. You know, not only could they inform each other, but they can better inform the community as to what problems exist and how to best reach them. But we know we've got a lot, I don't know if you know this already, Monica, but we've got a tremendous number of nonprofits active in the community. And the economy is declining, at least for now. And so the question is, how do we survive? How do we provide for the community's real needs, which go beyond, you know, the nonprofits and have to reach really deeply into the poor? So, you know, and we're really struggling with that question.
So is everybody else. You have to start with the resources that you have, start with the people in the community that are interested in forming some sort of a committee or a poverty summit, or a group of people who are interested in and have the same focus and the same goal, and then involve people in poverty. I mean, I think every community has similar issues, but they also have different issues, and you know, some are just a lack of resources. They don't have many resources, and that doesn't seem to be the problem here. So some communities, we work more with them in building up the resources. Other communities have plenty of resources, but it may be a program that's been cut, you know, or something due to funding, and so there are lots of things that can affect communities, and it's different for every place that I present. And I'm from Oklahoma, so I present nationally, and every community has different issues to deal with. So I think that's why it's important to bring everyone, you know, to the table to get on the same page.
Right. Well, I'm wondering if you could go into some of the work either that you've done or that the organization of the AHA process has worked, and maybe even talk about some of the anecdotal successes.
Okay. Well, we have run 3 different Getting Ahead and Just Getting By World workshops, and the people who go through the workshops for 20 weeks are from poverty, and I would like just to maybe tell you a little bit about that, because we've seen lots of success with that. And we're not only using it in my location, but we're also using it nationally, and we're putting people through the 20-week program who are interested in transitioning out of poverty, because not everybody is. So that's the first important thing we have to consider is, does the person want to move out of poverty? And we can't always assume everybody does. It's very presumptuous to assume that everybody wants to be, quote, middle class, or even that all middle class people want to be, quote, wealthy. And so we can't make that assumption. So for people who do want to transition from poverty to middle class, this class offers a way to learn the hidden rules, to learn the resources that you have, to build on those resources and get some bridging capital, or some people who can support you to move from poverty to middle class. And so places that we've tried this in are the housing authorities, the nonprofit agencies, just bringing a whole group of different people together. We've done it in transitional facilities, transitioning from women in prison, transitioning back out to society. We have done it embedded it in an actual factory type setting that hires people from poverty, and they have put the people from poverty through this 20-week class and then offered them a job that pays a livable wage. So it's really not a job, it's a career. And so they're more successful because they've been through this 20 weeks of learning all of the ways to help transition from poverty to middle class. We've actually also implemented it with kids coming out of high school who are going to college, and people going to college for the first time that may be from poverty that would benefit from knowing all of those things.
Now, I'm just thinking of how things might be brought to this community, and once someone goes through this 20-week getting out of poverty training, is it something that could then be done locally without having a national trainer?
Yes.
Is this something that we can do ourselves, for ourselves?
Yes, it's expected that will be yourself. And we want to know about the successes, and we want to support you. So you could always have somebody else come in, but the premise is that you would take the day 1 workshop and learn the basic principles of Dr. Payne's work, a framework for understanding poverty and bridges out of poverty. And then through that, what we teach the professionals, the same principles are taught to people in poverty. So once you've been through the day 1 professional training, you can then have the background information to go and present to people in poverty. And So yes, you would have the tools at that point. There's a facilitator's manual, and there's a workbook for the participants. And so the facilitator manual would take you through the entire process.
So are these workshops, are they available in a regional manner, or in order to take this 20-week course?
You would order the book as a professional who has gone through the Bridges Out of Poverty workshop.
Okay.
You would order the book through AHA process, and then it would tell you exactly how to implement the 20-week program. So just by everyone attending the workshop, they have got the tools.
I get it. So we actually have 70 people who now qualify as trainers for this additional 20-week course of bridging poverty into essentially learning the rules of how to get ahead.
That's right.
And so that is very doable within our own community. We've got 70 people who have already been exposed.
That's right. And you have 70 people who can go back and take their customer and put them through the 20-week class, and then all of their customers would be able to come to the table having gone to that class, and we can all speak the same language.
Fantastic.
That's very exciting.
Does this sound something like you're going to pick up, Eddie?
Possibly.
You put her on the spot.
Well, I know that maybe we should talk a little bit about what family Connections does, because you described it in general. It'd be good to know specifically what are some of the elements of Family Connection. You meet with 20 nonprofits. Can you talk a little bit about the nonprofits?
There's a representative from each nonprofit who comes every month to our monthly meetings.
Besides family, besides the baby one, which is?
Foothill Healthy Babies.
Foothill Healthy Babies. Give some others. What are they?
Well, from Child Advocates, from Sierra Nevada Children's Services, from Domestic Violence and DVSAC, and Sexual Assault Coalition. They come from Helpline and from the Interagency Council.
And these are some of these people who are also participating in this conference.
Yes.
And besides a lot of people from the county.
Yes, a lot of people from the county. But what Family Connections does is I have a very big network, which I do a lot of computer work, and I disperse information. Last year, when there was a person who needed a wheelchair, they lost their wheelchair and they needed it. So I just let everybody know. It turns out it was Lou who found the wheelchair for this person, but I sent out a lot of emails. And the other thing I do is provide training. It began as technical assistance training because people who work in nonprofits tend to not have the funding to get training. So it's called capacity building, which we do, and they're free workshops that we offer. And that's, usually I do a lot of little ones. This year I did one big one.
Right, which is what Monica's now
Mm-hmm.
doing. Well, you know, we look forward to further reports and the progress, and we will sort of keep posted on the progress. But I really want to thank you, Monica. Any last words you want before we close the show? Any last words? We really want to thank you because every community is, in a sense, isolated. And we benefit from people like yourself who come with a national perspective, lots of experience, and a program that works. So it's a win-win from every side. And we need to continue our education in not only this field, but as much education as we can get. So it's really helpful to have you here. Remember that the Bridges Out of Poverty book is a great workbook. And we'll be hearing more about this as well as other work that the AHA program is bringing to us. And again, thanks to Eddie for hosting the conference, pulling it together, coordinating it. And please continue to watch NCTV interviews. It's a way to help the community better educate yourself. Become a member of NCTV. And thanks to Gail Woodman and Cassandra Wallstrom, Bill Carquest, our engineer, and Honor Olmez, who is directing the show, a 9th grader out of Nevada Union High School. Thanks to all the crew, and please continue to watch NCTV.